Hey everybody, welcome here to Musicians Edition. I'm Evan with this piano video, and this one we're not going to be spending so much time at the piano. This one's going to be a bit more theory-based as we are going to be talking about scale degrees. So scale degrees is something I really love teaching because it really does change the way that you think about music and the way that you think about scales and the notes in those and chord progressions, which is going to be something we'll be focusing on in these next few videos here. So the main idea here is we are going to be changing those letters into numbers in a sense, which might sound redundant, but I promise we'll lay it out there and try to have it make sense by the end of this. And we'll really see in this one and these future videos how we can really change the way we think about chord progressions and become much better at understanding those and making our own. So you should have some prerequisite skills. You should know major and minor scales. You should know that they each have 7 notes. You should ideally know the patterns for those, the tone, semis, and all that. And you should have an idea of what chords are with those 1, 3, 5 triads that we use to make up basic major and minor chords. We will be using that throughout this here. So you should know in each of these scales, there are 7 notes. Major scales, minor scales, they both use 7 notes in them. So what we're doing is just turning those 7 notes into a number 1 through 7. So let's look at C major to get this going and so we can visualize this here. So C major is gonna be C through B, all the white keys. That's why it's kind of easy to visualize with this. And the 1 is always going to be the tonic or what that scale is named after. So in this case, C. And then we're just going to look at every note that follows after that. So the second note in the scale is D, so that's the 2. The third note is E, so that's the 3. And then we have a 4, 5, 6, 7. Just keep going up with the notes in this scale there. And then that repeats because we've hit all 7, and now we go back to the 1, which is C again, then 2, 3, 4, and so on and so on. So we had 7 notes in the scale that we are now giving 7 numbers, and that's the idea here. So let's look at this a bit differently here. We can see those 7 notes laid out here with the numbers above them. C major once again, and this applies to any other key, so let's go ahead and pick another key. We can do A minor. A minor has the same notes as C major. It's all the white keys, but now our tonic is what the scale is named after, which is A. That's where the 1's gonna go. And then keep going up from there. We have B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, and then 5, 6, and 7, ending on G before we come back to A again as our 1. So those are the scale degrees to that one. Same concept applies to anything with black keys as well, as the majority of scales do have black keys in them. So A major, it's a different pattern now since it's a major instead of a minor scale. A major is going to have the 1 on A, 2 on B, 3 on C sharp since that fits our major scale, 4 on D, 5 on E, 6 is F sharp, and 7 is G sharp before we would come back again to that 1 of A. So 7 scale degrees, all it is just numbering the notes in each scale. I think that part's easy enough. And now we have to talk about the why. Why are you making me do this? Why are you changing this up on me? So the key application for this is thinking about transposition and building chords or building even melodies as well too, but we're going to focus mostly on the chords here. So the characteristics of each of these numbers and what they bring to a melody or a chord progression is universal across all the musical scales. So what a 4 chord brings to my progression and how it affects how I think about the tonic is the same in C major as it would be in A minor or A major. So understanding that gives me a really good understanding of chords. No matter what scale I'm playing in, I can think about how a 4 chord is going to affect this, or what I might want to move to as my next chord. Do I want tension? Do I want something happy that's going to add to my progression? Once you understand what each of these numbers brings to it, you have a really good understanding of chords and building those progressions in any scale you're playing in. So not only will we just say the 1 is C and the 2 is D, but in the context of chords, we're going to say the 1 chord is the C chord, the 2 chord in this case is the D chord, and so on and so on. So not just those individual notes, but looking at it in the context of chords is the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, and that C chord is just the C, E, G, which is just the standard chord in that scale. The D chord is just the standard D chord that fits in the C scale, and so on. So we're going to keep on making sense of this. What we're going to do next is see how we can put these chords into categories and understand where we might want to use them. So let's first look at the names for each of these here. So each of these numbers is going to have a name that goes with it that's going to help us understand the category for it a bit. So the 1 we've already talked about is the tonic. That's the name we're going to stick with, as 1 is the tonic, 2 is the supertonic, 3 is the mediant, 4 is subdominant, 5 is dominant, 6 is the submediant, and the 7 is the leading note, or also called the subtonic. So I would really try to write that down so you can understand the names of each of these, as when they're talked about, they'll sometimes use the number or that actual name for it. And now we have 3 categories these are going to go into. So here's a picture to help you get an idea of what that is. So there's 3 tonics, there's 2 dominants, and there's 2 predominants. So we're going to break down what each of these mean here. So the tonics are the 1, 3, and 6. The 1 for obvious reasons because it is the tonic. The 6 and 3 fit with this tonic because they are really similar sounding to the tonic. They share at least 2 notes with it. And so the 3 chord has the 3, the 5, and then the 7. Whereas our 1 has the 1, 3, 5. The 3 chord has the 3, 5, 7. So it shares 2 notes with the 1. The 6 chord is 6, 1, 3, has the 3 notes to its triad. And that also shares 2 notes with the tonic, the 1 and the 3. So both of these share 2 notes with the tonic, which is why they fit in this tonic group. They don't create much motion because they are really similar sounding to the tonic. And so they give us more of a pausing moment from that tonic, or start to prepare us for tension coming. But the biggest thing is they sound similar to the tonic, so not too much motion away from it. The dominants next are the opposing forces. They're very dominant because they bring the tension. That's going to be the 5 and the 7. So you'll see a 7 looping back into a 1 is a big tension and then resolve moment, as we bring a lot of tension and then resolve it back on that tonic. The predominants prepare us for tension that is coming, or prepare us for what is often the dominance. And that's the 2 and the 4. They give us a moment of waiting or pausing before that tension is about to be coming. So predominant, because it's typically going to come before the dominance. So that is our 3 categories. So I really recommend printing this out or having it down so you can understand what each of the chords in these categories will bring to your progression. And now let's keep trying to make sense of this by thinking of some common progressions and seeing how this fits in. So a really common chord progression is a 1, 6, 4, 5. And let's think about why that is common and why it works. So the 1 is often our starting point to introduce the key in a state of relaxation, especially for that major scale, or giving us an idea of what that theme is going to be. Introducing that tonic with the 1. And then we move down to the 6 in this case. We don't get much motion, but it's starting to prepare us for tension that is coming, because this is another one of our tonics. The 4, which is a predominant, is now letting us know that tension is coming. It comes before that dominant. And we finish on the 5, which brings us that bright tension that is then again resolved when we come back to that 1 again. Because we'll often have songs that repeat that 4 chord progression. So 1, 6, 4, 5, back to the 1, 6, 4, 5 again. So 1 tonic, and then followed by the 6, which is another tonic that's not giving us too much motion yet. The 4 preparing us for tension, and the 5 giving us that tension. In the case of C major, this 1, 6, 4, 5 is a C, A, F, G. But maybe as I'm playing it, I think it sounds a bit too high. So maybe I want to shift this down a little bit. And maybe I want to shift it down to G or to A. If I did shift this down to A major, my 1, 6, 4, 5 is now A, F sharp, D, and E. And it has the same feel, the same kind of a feel to this progression. It's just lower because I'm using the same scale degrees and really the same kind of progression. It's just these numbers that are still the same, but just shifted down. So in music, what we do when writing chords is we create tension and then we resolve it. Knowing that, we can use this as a guide for our progressions to get an idea of what chords create that tension, which ones settle us down, which ones make us feel good in the context of whatever scale we are playing in. And so there's no general guide to what order we should be using for our chords. We all make songs with different themes, whether they're happy, they're sad, they're melancholy, whatever we want to use. So there's no strict rule book of the order that I'm going to put these chords in. It's always individualized, but this gives you an idea of what these chords can bring to a progression. And on top of that, we are learning about transposition because these characteristics apply to any key, any scale. So I can take a popular 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, or another popular 2, 5, 1 progression, and put it in any key I want and still understand what feel I'm going to get from it. So if you are interested in chord progressions, do really get this down, understand scale degrees, play around with different numbered chords across different scales to get an idea of how they do feel. And what I really did is I just went on a big chalkboard and I spent a few days writing down the songs to the progressions that I really liked. And I just wrote down the scale degrees that each of them used and thought about why they chose those and what it really brought to the song so I could have a better understanding myself. So go out and practice on your own. And of course, come back and watch some more Musicians Edition. We're going to keep on breaking this down, look at some song examples, and get a better idea of applying this. But I hope this gives you an idea of scale degrees, why it's useful, and we're going to keep on applying that here. So have fun playing around with that, and we'll see you next time.